Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode. We will be talking about the Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury fight, which, before we get started, I don't necessarily think it was a robbery. I think, though, how well Ngannou did was absolutely amazing and nothing short of phenomenal. Having said that, it was a close fight. It could have gone to Ngannou. That's what's scary. It shouldn't even that shouldn't even be the conversation. Like Tyson should have beat him and should have beat him outside of any conversation. I think the fact that it was even that close. It's not whether I agree or disagree with the decision. I think a lot of people want to do like, oh my God, it was a robbery because that looks good on the algorithm, and it's anytime there's a close fight, there's a difference between you don't agree with the decision and it was a robbery. I think it could have gone to Francis. It could have easily gone to Francis. I probably would have thought that it'd be closer to a draw than either one of them winning. But I think whilst everyone thinks this was horrible for boxing, I think this was the best thing for boxing because outside of Jones and Ngannou, I think this will be the most watched heavyweight fight. Like their rematch is going to be one of the most watched fights, heavyweight fights, if not fights. Had Fury have bashed him, there would be no rematch and there'd be no fight to watch like this. And it was one of the more exciting fights of Tyson Fury's career and definitely of Ngannou's. I think when you look back, you have to look back to 2021. I mean, he TKO'd and KO'd Wilder, but you're looking at those kind of fights. The draw with Wilder, I would say in 2018 would have been the one that made it the most exciting, the most thing, because in 2018, but now you're talking about 5 years ago, he had that draw with Wilder and then he came back and he beat Wilder in those two like rematches kind of thing, the trilogy. So I definitely think that's kind of made it more exciting for heavyweight boxing. Whilst at the same time, I thought Tyson Fury was going to win and it was going to win in an impressive fashion, but he didn't do that. And Ngannou did a fantastic job. I think that there were some very clear rounds for Tyson and some clear rounds for Ngannou. Obviously, the 10-8 round. And then there were a couple of those in the middle there where there were swing rounds. And from memory, like this, first and second to Tyson, and the 9th and the 10th, I would say to Tyson as well, from memory. And obviously a 10-8 round to Ngannou. And there were a couple more in there for Ngannou. And then there was swing rounds. So, it was a very close fight. It was a very, very close fight. Shouldn't have been that close. Harith says, Fury versus Ngannou reminded me of Islam and Volk, the first fight, because Volk did so great. They said he won. Same with Francis, but Tyson clearly out-jabbed Ngannou and won the fight on points, in my opinion. I'd say it's probably a little closer to the truth, and it's not what people want to believe, and it's not what people want the fairy tale to be, but I don't think it was a robbery. Of course, when you yell out robbery and that, it gets so much traction, right? Madara says, what did you make of both of their abilities or inabilities to cut the ring off? I felt like Francis did a poor job in that. Thoughts? Look, it's hard for me to say Francis did a poor job like that because he's fighting the lineal champion. He's fighting, Tyson Fury. He's fighting one of the better boxers to be, of recent times, at the very least. And he's awkward himself, and he's a huge, huge man. So I think that the biggest adjustments came from Francis going from orthodox to southpaw and taking away Tyson's jab when he switched to southpaw. So he did a very, very good job of that. I think he did fantastic. I can't really say he made this mistake or he made that mistake. He actually did really well. Ngannou punches are so, Max Jamil says, Ngannou's punches are so wild, they will always give problems to people. No one in boxing punches the way he does. Wilder is the closest, so I always felt like Ngannou would hurt Fury. Thoughts? Yeah, well, I picked Fury. I'm not going to say I was one of the people who picked Ngannou prior to the fight because I don't believe him. It wouldn't have been the right pick anyways. You know what I mean? Like it's not that'd be just something you're saying. Like sometimes I go to my wife, like say something I thought would cost $800 and ends up costing $1,000, and I'd be like, "Fuck that! I'm not buying that." And then I'll say to my wife, "Hey, how much you reckon that thing was?" And you'd think she's going to say 800, but she'll say 5,000 because she knows that I'm going to say something outlandish. So I can never outdo her. So, yeah, no one was going to pick Ngannou in their right mind. But yes, you are right. I did think that he would land at some point. He would land a shot, and I thought that if he did land it, he might knock Tyson out, and that would be the only way. I did not think that he'd be able to hang in there and box the way that he did for the 10 rounds. I was so super impressed, and the fight was way closer than it needed to be, in my opinion. But I do think they have to and they should do a rematch, and that rematch is going to look, I think it's going to be really cool. Honestly, that'd be something that I for sure will sign up to watch. Whereas this one, I was like, man, we'll see, da da da. And man, it delivered. I will say that. Light Yagami says, what did you make of Tyson's physique? He looked in terrible shape, but last week he told Hawani he trained for 12 weeks and didn't overlook Ngannou. Yeah, look, this happens like even in the other, we just earlier did another stream where we were speaking about Islam Makhachev versus Khabib. And everyone in the comments afterwards are like, people said this, Islam says this, Islam says Khabib's better. Of course, Islam's going to say Khabib's better, like Islam is not going to say, oh, Abdul Manap Nurmagomedov basically raised and helped me through, and I was with him since childhood. His son was my mentor and training partner, and today he's a coach of mine, and blah, blah, blah. I'm better than him. He's never going to say that. Of course not. You know what I mean? So you can't go off what people say. Tyson always looks kind of big and flabby, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that he overlooked Ngannou either. I probably tend to believe him because Ngannou doesn't look like a guy that you're going to fucking overlook. And that's all. I heard an interview today from Tyson, and he said the same, like echoing what you just say now. And I think that whilst he may not have overlooked him, and I'm just speculating here, and I hate to do this, whilst he may not have overlooked him, and he may not have underestimated him, it's very hard. And he said this himself. There is no videotape of Ngannou boxing, and boxing professionals and boxing people with different idiosyncrasies and that. So that's difficult, man. No one knew that Ngannou could switch to southpaw and jab and, like just do the whole thing that he did. I'm not going to get into each and every single one of them. So no one knew that. No one knew that he would be able to use fight IQ and ring IQ to adjust mid-fight. No one knew this. And Tyson didn't know this either. So I think that those things caught him out. But that's not necessarily overlooking or underestimating someone. That's just literally you don't know. And there's no information out there for you, to start to understand that, this was going to happen. Whereas Ngannou has a lot of stuff to research with Tyson. Jordan Martinez says, what do you think went wrong between Francis and the UFC? What is the true story of the breakdown of the relationship between the two? I have no idea. I'm not privy to those conversations or anything like that. But, it's a hard thing because, see, someone like Tyson, like Francis has the legit reality of a life outside of the UFC, and not everybody does. Like, as much as some of the fighters will pretend that they do, not all of them do. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them, the UFC, whether it's popular to say or not, and I'm not like a UFC shill at all. Like, I'm not nothing. I'm just like saying the truth. Some of these guys, that's the best paydays they're ever going to get, and they would never get any other payday other than this. There's no like whatever. The other thing is different though. Once you get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million followers, you're the champion. You're the current champion. You've defended your belt, and then there's people outside of the UFC that you can actually challenge and that people are going to be interested in. And then you fucking go out and do it the way that Francis did. That's probably more what happened. Not necessarily something went wrong. The UFC is a promotion, dude. The UFC is a promotional company. They're going to want to pay you as little as they can for you to work and maximize a profit for them. And, like for sure for Francis would have been great payday when he first became champion, But as soon as you start realizing what you can draw, then there's life outside of the UFC for him. And now for sure he's proven that there is. And for him, not every single fighter though. Mario Gomez says, to be honest, I thought the fight was poor and boring. Both of them rarely threw anything. Yeah, it doesn't matter is the fight exciting or not. I think it's more so the fact that Francis got done what he got done, and that he did what he did more so than it was the fight itself, edge of your seat exciting. Nathan Gorman says, is boxing and MMA judging the same? For example, in MMA, damage is a determining factor. I wonder if in boxing, if you jab your opponent, if that's enough to win the fight. No, boxing, they're both 10-point must systems in the UFC and in boxing, but the way that it's viewed is different, And I'm not an MMA judge or a boxing judge. And even like when people talk about damage is very subjective. Like, how do you, except on the extremes, right? You bust someone's head open, or you've rocked them all over the mat. All right, you can go damage, but it's very hard to gauge what damage is. It's very, very hard. It's not as easy as people think, because that's still subjective. That's still a subjective thing. You're still looking at that going, that was a hard shot, but was it harder than the shot that landed before? Was a liver shot that I saw you land that made the guy wince, is that more or less than the right hand that landed that bloodied your mouth and snapped your head back? I don't know. It depends how you see it. It's very subjective. Death Note says, what did you make of their cardios? Fuck, it's hard to say, man. People want to shit on them, dude. These dudes are super heavyweights that fought 10 rounds. I can't sit there and shit on them, dude. Like, everyone says that, and I got no fucking idea what that means. Now, these are giant men. Like, Tyson Fury is 6'9", right? He's 6'9". He beat, I don't know, 130 kilograms or something ridiculous, This is a giant human being, and he fought 10 rounds. And, Francis is not as big, but he's still a giant human. And yeah, I can't say, their cardios were shit. Like, the cardio was pretty good, man. You fight 10 rounds like that. Pepcard says a YouTube channel called MMAI. He's done an in-depth analysis on what happened between Francis and the UFC. Fab, I would advise you to watch it when you have time. I will watch it, dude, but not that guy, because I'm not shitting on people, but I tend to not like those things, to be honest, in general, because it's easy for you to break down a fight and say, this is what happened after the fact. Do you get what I mean? Like, and you're still only speculating. You don't know what actually happened. You don't know, like people say, like, and I've said this a million times, like, they'll say, as he came in, he threw the right hand and he went back and threw a left. And that's not necessarily what happens. Like, the guy's coming in, and the other fighter is doing it on autopilot a lot of the time. Sometimes they set it up, sometimes they can set traps, sometimes they can't. It depends. So it's still, you're speculating to things after the fact. And I don't really have much weight for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? John Wayne says, I'd be more impressed if they did that, any sort of like analysis before the fight and bet on it. You know what I mean? Like, and nothing against that guy from MMAI. I'm sure he does a fantastic analysis and a fantastic breakdown. So shout out to him. I'm not actually criticizing that. I'm just saying, like, sometimes people take that are watching it, they don't understand that that's not that he shouldn't do that. That's fantastic. But I'm saying people don't understand this is done after the fact, This is done after the fact. It's easy. You could do that with war journals too and say they shouldn't have attacked at 10 o'clock. That's, they would have won the war. John Wayne says, Francis is in a weird position. He promised PFL a fight early next year, but now he's saying that he wants a rematch. Considering he's 37, he should cash in with boxing in Saudi instead of MMA with less money. I'm sure, dude, they'll come up with something. I'm sure there'll be enough money in this fight, in a rematch, to make sure it gets done. For sure. For sure. That will be more like, I would say there's more anticipation of that heavyweight fight than any other heavyweight fight, at least in the next 6 months. My opinion. I'd watch that pretty much over any other fight, unless it was Jones and Francis, But other than that, I'd say to you, that's one that should be made. Max Jamil says, Ngannou used his elbow to push off Tyson's chin in the clinch. Were you surprised he was that powerful and Tyson couldn't have his way with him physically? I think I'm not surprised that Ngannou's is that strong. No, not at all, because I watched his whole UFC career. But I think it would have been difficult for Tyson, because Tyson likes to put his weight down on people and use the leverage that he has and the extra weight that he has to tire people out and make it really difficult for them. And I think it was really difficult for him to do that even close to Ngannou. And somebody asked about their clinches before. It doesn't surprise me that Francis got the better of it in the clinch. This is someone that spent the last however many years of combat sport in, working these kinds of situations. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And he's also ridiculously powerful as well. And not just technically sound with it, but very, very powerful. So that doesn't really shock me, but it does interest me, the fact that Tyson couldn't adjust to it properly. And Tyson said something really interesting in another interview, and this is something that more people need to understand. That's why when I'm talking about, when people are talking, this is what happened in the fight, he goes, you're only, and a million times I've said this, you're only as good or as bad as, you only look as good or as bad as the person you're fighting lets you be. So when people are saying, like, Israel didn't look good, he didn't look good because Strickland did what he did. If Israel had kicked his head off, he would have looked good. And so, like, that's like, yeah, I'm surprised that Tyson couldn't adjust to that. Maybe the rematch would be very different though. Light Yagami says, has Fury ever fought someone that big? Ngannou was 270 pounds. Fury seemed shook. I think the specimen, because there's another thing, man. People go, he made a mockery of boxing. He also made a mockery of the UFC heavyweight division as well. Like, save for one or two little slip-ups, he fucking ran through guys. When I'm looking at Ngannou's record here, he bashed people. He lost a unanimous decision to Derek Lewis and Stipe Miocic. Obviously, like, that's nothing to think. But, man, in a very short time, in 5 or 6 fights, he fought for the UFC belt, lost that to Stipe Miocic, lost the rematch, then bashed everyone else in MMA. Like, he lost his second fight to Zumana Cisse in December of 2013. So pretty much in any combat sport, Ngannou's a scary, scary man. Kenzo Tenma says, in heavyweight boxing, all it takes is one punch. So in hindsight, Ngannou had more than a puncher's chance as compared to Conor versus Floyd, or a hypothetical Volk versus Crawford, where skill matters more. Yeah, but don't forget, Conor was a lot bigger than Floyd. Conor was a lot bigger than Floyd. So the puncher's chance for Conor was bigger again. That's something to be said. But you are right. I don't give Volkanovski a huge amount of chance against Crawford in boxing. It's just the way that they fight too, because don't forget that for Ngannou, he's very boxing heavy MMA fighter, whereas Volkanovski uses his kicks and he uses, like, his wrestling. He's a very different type of fighter. Conor is a very boxing heavy MMA fighter. Like, Conor won junior titles as a young man in Ireland. So he's boxed as a kid. He's got an amateur boxing record. It's not actually that surprising. Not that he's going to fight Floyd in his debut, but, like, he's got a boxing background, and so does Ngannou, in that he uses his boxing in MMA heavily. That's his game. You know what I mean? And he punches like a truck. So Volkanovski's a little bit different if he were to fight Crawford. This is a bit different. Yeah, so that's Death Note. You asked about the clinch. I answered that. Nathan Gorman said, Saudi Arabia already pre-booked Tyson versus Usyk in December. So Ngannou was never going to win on points. He had to KO him in order to truly win. Again, that's just like a speculation thing. You know what I mean? I like I can't get into the conspiracy theory part of it, like it may be, but maybe not. But it wasn't like Ngannou, like I can't say to you, could you make a case that Ngannou won? Yes, you could. But you can't negate that there is a case that Tyson won as well. Like that's where it gets weird when people are talking about robbery. Robbery to me is like you can't make a case the other guy won. It's fucking impossible. That's a robbery. And they're very, very rare, man. Like that Gordon versus Pimblett fight, that was a robbery. I can't think of too many others. Like, I don't think this was a robbery. I think this was a close fight. And Ngannou should never have done as well as he did, and congratulations to him. And he could have got the nod. He could have absolutely got the nod. It was one of those things where it was just like a close fight. Could have been a draw, could have gone to Ngannou, could have gone to Tyson. He went to Tyson. John Wayne says, what did you make of Tyson's dirty elbow on Ngannou? It seemed intentional. Thoughts? I mean, it's a fight. You know what I mean? Like, whether or not he meant it, it wouldn't have felt good for Ngannou. These things, it's a fight, man. Yeah. Mario Gomez says, considering Francis had the energy to throw a Superman punch in the last round, were you surprised he didn't push the pace in the later rounds? I think that he's smart. I know, honestly, that showed how clever he is, because you can't just he had the wherewithal to understand that fight was within reach and not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. He knows that he was close to winning that fight, that fight could have gone either way. He knew this. He had a knockdown. He was 10-8. Had he gone all out and walked into a right hand of Tyson, into a left hook, or Tyson just peppered him, or man, a fighter the size of Tyson catches you with one of those jabs coming in, he's going to hurt you really, really bad, or at the very least, it's going to stop you from coming forward, and you're going to lose that momentum. So I'm impressed that he kept his composure. That was probably the thing that, along with his chin, which I already knew he had a good chin, but his composure down the stretch, that was fucking impressive. That was impressive. His punching power you knew about. He's put away some really good fighters. Like, this is another thing. He put away Overeem, dude. Almost killed Overeem, actually. Overeem has like accolades in kickboxing, He has legitimate accolades, a legit kickboxer. Knocked out Andrei Arlovsky, he's a good striker. He's got a lot of good wins in Rosenstruck. Who's a legitimate striker as well. He's got big KO wins versus these guys. He's not a guy that hasn't got striking, that's not his bread and butter. That is his bread and butter. Max Jamil says, were you surprised at Ngannou's chin, or did Tyson not land any big shots that should have put him on the canvas? Tyson hits a lot harder than people think he hits, because it doesn't look, he's not like a Wilder, I'm going to wind it up from the next suburb over and hit you. He's going to hit you with shots. He's very long. There's a lot of leverage there. He's very heavy. He's got a lot of TKOs and a lot of KOs on his record, like a lot. And so no, I'm actually really impressed by Ngannou's chin, to be honest. Some of those shots from Tyson, they don't look like they're hard, but he hits hard. Jordan Martinez says, the UFC really messed up with the handling of Francis. They could have been part of this. Do you think they will try to re-sign Francis, or have they burnt those bridges? I don't know what happened, so I can't say to you and they've burnt their bridges or whatnot. No, please don't write down, this is what, I don't know what happened. You know what I mean? Like, no one knows unless you're part of it. Like, you don't know what actually happened. But they re-signing him will be hard, because PFL is not going to let him go. And now in this scenario, Francis has made a situation where he can call the shots as far as that's concerned. Now he doesn't have to have that. He's big enough now himself, so I don't think that they would resign him unless it's for a truckload of money and some crazy figure. You know what I mean? Some crazy figure and some. Yeah. So no, I don't think they'll re-sign him. Death Note says, it would suck not to see Jones versus Ngannou. Francis is the only fighter I think Jones fears considering his punching power to KO him. It's a shame we will never see it. Yeah, it's a shame we never saw it, but I do think Francis would get that win. Woohoo says if Francis was allowed one elbow, Tyson would have been dead. No points were taken from the elbow. Nah, no points were taken from the elbow. What a fuck says underrated take woohoo. Johnny says so happy for Francis. What bothers me that there's people in the world that can teach their body how to box or any martial art way quicker than the average Joe. That being said, Francis is a beast. Francis is a monster, dude. Like Francis is a guy that would have excelled in any combat sport. When you hit that hard and you've got a granite chin and you're that athletic, I don't see how it's that surprising that he's as good as he is. Ryan H says, "Were you surprised?" No, I'm not surprised by Francis's chin. Ryan H. Yeah, like he's fought in MMA and he's taken big shots and yeah, just kept going. Like I've never seen him. No, I'm not surprised by his chin. I think he did a fantastic job, but yeah. Tyson says, Pep Guard says, Tyson should never have taken this fight. It reminds me of Islam versus Volk. It's a lose-lose for Islam, and it was a lose-lose to Fury. Tyson would have made money anyway fighting Usyk or Joshua in Saudi. It's an interesting take. Could be. Kenzo says, what type of game plan should Colby use on Leon? And what type of game plan should Leon use on Colby? I'm not going to go into that too much because I want to keep it about these two guys, but I think that Leon is, I'm just going to say this, I think that Leon is a notoriously good grappler, like more so than people realize or give him credit for. I think that Colby is going to get cut, to be honest with you. I think Colby's going to get cut by an elbow in one of the exchanges. I think that's what Leon's probably going to look to do. It's going to be hard to out cardio Colby. If you move backwards, he's going to take you down. He's going to bum rush you and he's going to take you down. And that's going to be interesting to see how Leon deals with that. And I think part of the way he deals with that is going to be to cut him with an elbow. Nathan Gorman says, Stippard said on OnlyFans last week that the UFC never offered him the chance to fight for the interim title, which sounds strange considering how old he is. He may never get a shot now. Thoughts? I think I don't know what happened, but if I was the UFC, and I love Stipe Miocic, by the way, but I'm speaking, there's different things, right? There's what I think as a coach, what I think of as a coach, and what I think of as a coach if I was Stipe's coach or the opposition's coach or the promotion or the Stipe himself, And just to say from the UFC perspective, to me, I would not give Stipe the shot because I would want to bring new blood into the heavyweight division, which is what they're doing with Pavlovich and Aspinall. So that's my thoughts on that. Sucks for Stipe. It sucks for Stipe, but you want to see like they need to rebuild that division. Much the same, the middleweight division. The middleweight division was cavalcade of animals. It kind of died down. The guys, kind of fought each other, and now it's rebuilding. So you're going to want to see this new young blood fighting up the card and whatnot. John Wayne says Colby has high volume striking, so how should Leon counter that, or what would he do to slow Colby down? I think he's going to cut him. I think Leon's going to elbow him as much as he can in clinches, in exchanges. He's going to throw that left elbow and he's going to cut him somewhere because the elbows stop you coming forward, stop you wanting to clinch. There's nothing like a good elbow to the face that stops that. And Leon's very good at sneaking that left elbow in and cutting you. And that makes a big difference. And I do think that's one of the big things he's going to do. Considering both Leon and Colby are southpaws, will they negate each other's stand-up, says Harith. I think Leon is one of the better strikers in the UFC. So, no, I think the advantage is always going to be for Leon. Not to say Colby can't catch him, but I think as far as a stand-up is, it's going to be easier for Leon to make that adjustment. Jordan Martinez says, what do you think Colby learned about Leon from his 2 victories against Usman? That Leon is a very good grappler, I would say. And he's got a lot of dog in him and he'll stay in the fight. How can Jiri counter Alex's left hook? It seems obvious he's going to throw it, but it always seems to land. I think Jiri's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve. I think he's very unorthodox with the way he throws stuff. He'll throw spinning stuff. He'll throw spinning fists, spinning elbows. punches from weird angles, and that's hard for Alex to set his feet and throw that left hook. And I'm just answering this without doing a breakdown. I will be doing a breakdown on that fight, though. Madara says, if John and Stipe had fought next week, what would be the biggest problem both would have to deal with, and how should they counter it? I think the problem here for Stipe is that the fight's a little bit past his time. I think prime Stipe versus prime John at heavyweight would be a different fight and a different conversation. But I think right now, I think John's a little bit younger. And I was just talking about this with someone the other day. Like 2-3 years difference is a big difference, man, depending on the age. Like if you're 31 and 28, no, hey, that's not, it doesn't matter. But you could be 36 and 33. That means you're leaving your peak and I'm entering mine. This is a problem. And I kind of feel like that with Miocic and John. John's still there, and Miocic is kind of leaving his, like, more than kind of, he's leaving his prime. Mario Gomez says, can Cody Garbrandt make a run for the title, or is his chin too compromised at this point? Again, it's one of those things. I think that we've seen the best Cody now. You know what I mean? Like, not only it's not just are you still in your prime, it's the other guys are coming through that are entering theirs, and how many of those fights can you have? Max Jamil says, TJ got caught for PEDs after his Cejudo fight. You reckon he was on it during the Cody rivalry? I think Cody slipped up in a press conference pre-UFC 217 and admitted TJ brought PEDs to the gym. I think once you get caught, once you're on PEDs, like if you get caught for it, that you can't be like, it's like fucking getting caught cheating with on your wife, you know what I mean? And you go, no. It was just this time. It doesn't fucking matter anymore. You know what I mean? Whether, like, you're done, you got caught, it's tarnished your whole relationship, and it is what it is. Light Yagami says, considering Leon took down Kamaru in the second fight, do you think he'll attempt some takedowns on Colby, or would that be risky considering Colby can chain wrestle? They can both chain wrestle. Kamaru is like a high level wrestler, dude. Like, it's not like he can't chain wrestle. That's Colby's game, but no, I don't think that. I don't think that he's gonna. I don't think even he went out to go, oh, okay, I'm just gonna take Kamaru down and out wrestle him. I think if the opportunity's there, then yeah. And Leon's like, he's a big guy, man. Leon's a big dude at welterweight. He might end up at middleweight. He's like a tall, rangy, big guy, hard to take down, long legs, strong hips. If the situation's there, he may, but I do think that he's going to focus on those elbows, on those knees, and he's going to try and cut Colby, and that's going to slow Colby's pressure coming forward if you can bust him open and cut him open. Leon McHungry says, Fury couldn't dominate the clinch like he did with Wilder. No, he could not. No, he could not. He's usually the bigger guy. He's usually the bigger guy in there with people, and he's a like very, very like imposing figure, and he couldn't do that to Ngannou. And Nathan Gorman says, what do you make of Izzy saying he won't be back? He won't be back by 2027. Did Sean break him with those dog comments in the press conference and then the domination in the fight? I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Israel, but if it's 2023 now, are you saying he won't be back until 2027? Like, if he said that, then he'll be fucking 40 something. You know what I mean? Like, or close to 40. You know. So no, I don't. I think if Israel's going to fight, you know, Israel's not stupid, dude. He might say that. This is the thing. What people say is, it's weird to me that people go, no, he said that in the press conference. Whoever it is, it's true, or he really means that. Like, Israel's not dumb, dude. He knows that if he waits till 2027, it's the end of 2023 now. But that's, say it's 3 years from now, and he's what, 30, 34, he'd be 37, something, inactive, not having fought. While you got this big influx of young talent coming through, like you got Hamza, Bo Nickel, Kale Baralo, I'm talking about the young guys that are coming through, you know. No, you know, I really don't see him sitting out like that. I don't. I honestly see Israel fighting, I don't know, reasonably soon, if he's going to fight, if he's going to keep fighting, for sure. 2027 is a long time away. Death Note says, do you like it when heavier fighters call out lighter fighters, like Islam when he called out Volk after UFC 280, or Colby when he calls out Poirier and Islam. Why not fight fighters in their own weight class? I don't think they have a problem fighting the fighters in their own weight class. But for example, for Islam, Volkanovski always spoke about coming up to lightweight. And I think for Islam, why not take that fight? That was a big fight. That was a really big fight against Volkanovski, in my opinion. This is just me, is number one pound for pound fighter at the time and probably ever. Right up there. He'd be in a list of the top 10 pound for pound fighters ever. And so to get a win over him, fuck, that's big. You know what I mean? Like, you can't negate that. You can't think. So I don't see that as a problem. John Wayne says, what will Topuria have learnt from the Islam and Volk fights that he can implement in his own fight with Volk? I think that left high kick is there to land, but he doesn't have the height advantage necessarily that Islam or Max Holloway have, but they both landed it. I think the implementation of that to keep Alex's right hand at home is very important. And using front kicks, like linear front kicks, to stop Alex being able to blitz and interrupt Alex's blitzes are very important, as well as throwing that left high kick to keep it at home, whether you do it from a switch kick, whether you do it from a step through, because he's not a southpaw. Either or, he has to throw that, and I think that that's probably something that he would have learned. He would have also learned that Volkanovski is very, very hard to take down and even harder to keep down. Harris says, how underrated is Leon's grappling? Super underrated, man. Super underrated. Considering he took down Kamaru with a trip, out-grappled Gunnar Nelson and RDA with ease, considering Leon started off as a striker. I think it's crazy. Do you know what I mean? I think it's crazy. You think that he's underrated. I think his grappling's phenomenal. And his wrestling's good too. His wrestling's good too. Cam says, I don't know if you mentioned this, but what does this mean for Fury versus Usyk, do you think? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to fight again. I think it depends. And this will be crazy for people, but not everything's money, right? Not everything's money. Like, I did a breakdown, who's better, Khabib or Islam, right? Just earlier. They're never going to fight each other. No matter how much of a fucking truckload of money you put in front of them, they're never going to fight each other. And so not every decision is about money. This is 100% true, But having said that, it just depends, because right now, yeah, Usyk, if you're a hardcore boxing aficionado, but even if you are a hardcore boxing aficionado, but if you are, you want to see Usyk versus Fury. But even if you're not, or even if you are a boxing aficionado, you have to want to watch this rematch with Fury and Ngannou. Even more so if you're a boxing aficionado, because you can't let that slide. You got to be like, no. This has got that chapter's not finished. So I think that the consensus would be a rematch, right? Like, I think that, guys, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. Please let me know in your comments what you thought about the fight as well, please, guys. SG says, greetings again, Fab. Greetings, sir. What a fuck says, Francis is used to surviving kicks to the head. The punches are light work. Haha. In fairness, Francis doesn't cop a lot of kicks to the head. SG says, do you think Fury versus Ngannou fight opened the door for more MMA versus boxing fights? And so you think the UFC should start considering these kind of crossover events? I do think that there will be crossover events. I don't know how much a Fury versus Ngannou fight does it itself, because I don't have the same faith. Like, I thought Fury would win, and I thought Fury would win with greater ease. But Ngannou is a guy that hits like a truck. He hits like a truck. He's a real specimen. Connor's the other guy that hits like a truck. So that gives them the X factor to be able to box at this high level. And I've seen really good MMA guys box really good boxers, right? And I've seen the MMA guys do really, really well in the boxing. I'm not going to say names. I'm not going to say who, and I'm not going to say where. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of them, a lot of different guys, but I've also seen them get touched up bad. And I've also seen the difference in the ring, and I've also seen when a boxer knows how to do that, knows how to win rounds. So the MMA guy might be looking good, but say that you're fighting over 10 or 12 rounds, the boxer knows how to win rounds. It's like if you wrestle if you wrestle, you do Olympic freestyle wrestling, it might look close, but dude beat you 2-0, 2-0, or whatever however they're scoring nowadays. But before, when I was involved in wrestling, you had to wrestle 3 rounds and whatever. But you might win 2-0, 2-0, but the guy beat you, dude. Like it didn't come close. It wasn't close. So I don't know. I don't know that there's a lot of guys that I can see giving that champ a run, in their division. Like Usman versus Canelo, I can't see that happening. It depends on the weight too, because Conor was a lot heavier. Conor was bigger, is bigger than Floyd, and he's a big puncher, and he's got a boxing history. So you have to have those things to make the perfect storm, and I don't see a lot of guys. And then you have to have your antagonist, right, to be able to do that. You can't, like, the guy that's in your division has to draw as well. Like, say if you're a big draw and you're a big draw in the UFC, right, and you want to box, but the guy that is the champion in boxing doesn't draw, doesn't have big draw, doesn't have a lot of people, don't even know who he is. That's not going to draw. So you need that perfect storm. Nathan Gorman says, thoughts on Brendan Schaub and Hawani deriding Ngannou and shitting on the UFC. I mean, I don't have like heaps of thoughts on it. Like I don't hate either one of them. I'm not a hater of either one of those guys. You got to remember, like, again, like I said, like when people saying stuff, they're saying it for a reason. Creates controversy. It's polarizing. They obviously have their history with the UFC. That, to me, all of that aside, is what I said. It's not, what I'm saying is not that polarizing. It's not going to get the views like that than if you went out there and probably said what they're saying. And credit to them, good for them. I'm just saying what I actually saw, what I saw from my subjective position happen, and I didn't see it at a robbery. A robbery to me is you go out there and you fucking like annihilate someone and they give it to the other guy. There was a case for Francis winning. There was a case for the fight being a draw, but there was also a case for Tyson winning. So I can't be like, I'm shocked that Tyson won. That's not a robbery, man. Cam says, I'm a boxing aficionado. I want to see Usyk versus Fury. I'm more meant, given what we saw from Fury. How do you think a fight with Usyk would play out? Man, I like Usyk a lot as a fighter, eh? The only thing my only concern, I think, is, how do I say this? Is he's a lot smaller. Like, you know what I mean? That's my only concern for like, he's not tiny, but he's not like that natural huge guy. He's an inch shorter than fucking Ngannou, but he's just not the behemoth that is Tyson. Having said that, I think that he's, I don't know, the better boxer, so to speak. I really like how he fights. Really, really a big fan of Usyk. I don't know. I think that he's just the size of Tyson alone, though. Not just the size of Tyson. The size of Tyson is one of the things that throws me off a little bit. I don't know who would win that, but I think Usyk's got the better footwork. The better is tidier, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean he's going to win necessarily. He's an incredible guy. He's an incredible gold medalist at 2012 Olympics, World Championships gold medalist, bronze medalist as well, European gold and bronze, World Cup silver medal. Man, he's who he is. Like, it's no joke. SG says, also, does it seem to you that pro boxers train by the book too much? Fury seemed to have a tough time adjusting to Ngannou's style. We've seen Tommy Fury also struggle against KSI's Taekwondo style. Again, I don't want to compare, no disrespect to KSI, but to Ngannou, no, not necessarily, man, because I think Ngannou, how do I say this? Ngannou is what he is. Like, Ngannou is like a undisputed UFC heavyweight champion, like undisputed. He's just bashed everyone, you know what I mean? And yeah, he has had a couple of losses, but they were like, his last loss was 5 years ago in the UFC, and there were 2 decision losses. But after that, he kind of fixed some stuff up and came back and's got nothing but beatdowns, except for a the decision with his with Cyril Gahn, who they were training partners. So that sometimes make things difficult when you know each other the way you do. So no, it's not that they train by the book. It's like this guy's a freak, man. This guy's an animal, and like he does that to MMA fighters too. People, it's not like he's. If you told me this was a journeyman MMA fighter and he did that with Tyson Fury, I'd be like, "Fuck, this is the thing." It doesn't surprise, and we don't have enough body of work, enough sample size. Like, I'd like to see the rematch. You know, maybe a best of three. Say we call this one a draw, and you give a best of three. I would imagine that Tyson is going to be able to make the adjustments. He just has a greater depth and vocabulary of boxing. I think he'd be able to make adjustments to win a little bit more comfortably, I believe, in a rematch. Having said that, maybe Francis has more wrinkles he can add. I don't know. But I would say that, I would say that there's probably the thing. I can't compare Tommy Fury to Tyson Fury or KSI to Ngannou. I really can't. SG says, how about Max Holloway or a Dustin Poirier versus Crawford? I think Dustin Poirier would be way too big for Crawford. Not that Crawford wouldn't beat him. I just think that, again, it's one of those things. Like these guys is a lot big. He's a lot bigger than him. Like, what weight does he fight at? He fights at, Max Holloway would be closer to it. Let me just see something because I want to make sure that I'm not saying stuff that's 1 second, guys. Yeah, so he fights at 64 kilograms. So that's a welterweight in boxing, right? That's a little guy, man. That's a little guy, and Thingo's a lot bigger. So Poirier's a lot bigger. Even Max Holloway would be bigger. You know what I mean? Not massively bigger, but he'd still be bigger. Like featherweights fight at what 66 kilograms. If Max Holloway made 64 kilograms, which would be a big difference, I don't think he'd give him a good run. That's small. Like for Max Holloway to get to that weight. Same as for Volkanovski to get to that weight, to get to 64 kilograms would be very hard. O'Malley versus Haney or Garcia. I don't think O'Malley and Haney it's different, man. It's very different as well. It's different. I'm not saying he couldn't box him, and I'm not saying he'd do terribly, but I'm just looking at these. I'm just saying what I think. Max Holloway is not a big puncher, right? Dustin Poirier is a lot bigger than fucking Crawford. You know what I mean? So that's not really a good comparison. So take Dustin out of it. Max Holloway versus Crawford. Max is not like a massive puncher. He's not a big puncher, but he can box. And I think he'd do a good. Max would do this. Max will make a good go of it. He's got a good chin and he's got good cardio and he can box and he's got a good punch rate and everything. And he'd make a good fight of it and everyone would cry and say it was a fucking robbery. But I think Crawford would get the win. That's what I think. And people don't understand the way that it's scored. Like say you fight over 12 rounds or over 10 rounds. I don't think Crawford's going to knock Max Holloway out necessarily because he's a very good, tough fighter who is a world fucking champion in UFC, and he does it primarily from boxing. So Max versus Crawford would be interesting, but Crawford would get the win, and the way that he'd get the win would make people say that it was a robbery, but it wouldn't be. That's what I think. O'Malley versus Haney, I think it's different, man, because O'Malley's boxing is kind of done. This is my opinion on it as well. It's kind of done off the back of his elusiveness and him defending takedowns generally of guys that are smaller, that are shorter than him. That's not his fault. Kind of like how Jose Aldo would fight the small featherweights, like the shorter featherweights. And so it's a different game. And fighting Haney, here's the difference. O'Malley hits hard, but Haney hits hard in boxing. So I would imagine Haney would get it done. Having said that, it'd be one of those fucking things. Probably O'Malley, because it's tough, He's a world champion as well, man. You got to understand, he's a world champion in a combat sport who does have a boxing heavy approach, but he's got a lot of kicks as well. So it's different. I'm gonna go past a few of it. But that isn't to say that they wouldn't do well in boxing. I don't know that Haney would be the one that I would pick for O'Malley. Hanoi Tripper says, hi Fab, I didn't actually see the fight. You've probably discussed it, but did Ngannou do okay? Does he have a career in boxing if he wants? Yes, he did, and absolutely. I think he beats Chisora, White, probably Wild. I think he beats a lot of people, I don't know if he beats Joshua, but he beats a lot of people, like I think he definitely beats Chisora and White. I do think he does beat them. I don't know if he beats Usyk, although Usyk's a little smaller, but still, like, there's guys that I don't necessarily think he beats. SG says, I think if people start crying that Holloway versus Crawford is a robbery, that's a big win for MMA already. Yeah, but this is why I say to you, it depends. People don't understand that necessarily. They're just saying whatever the fuck they're saying. Like, and then the MMA community gets behind it, and then it's like, it was a robbery. It was and they're like, people follow the narrative that's being said. So, for example, like, and again, it's not like I want to shit on people's performances or anything like that, because I don't. That's why I don't actually want to get into it too much. But like, a lot of the times in boxing, you'll have the fights go to a unanimous decision, right? And the guy wins, and you're watching it. And if you're not like a boxing person, and I'm not like a boxing person, but if you're not, it's hard for you to keep score in your head. If you're not scoring it as you're going, it's hard for you to keep score. Like, there's 12 rounds, say, right? I win the first 4 rounds and the last one, even the last 2. Now, let's say I win the first 3 and the last 2. That's 5 rounds. You win 7. You still win because you won the 7 in between. And maybe when I beat you, but I didn't beat you at a 10-8. I just beat you at 10-9. When you won clear but close. You still win the fight. And so when people are watching that, they don't understand what they're fucking watching. So they call robbery. This isn't even against boxers. They don't understand that. Happens in MMA as well. Like, sometimes I'll watch a fight and dude wins the first 3 rounds clear, 10-9, 10-9, 10-9. And the other guy wins the next 2 in a 5-round fight, 10-9, 10-9. And all people remember is those ones. If you have a problem with the scoring system, that's different. That's not a robbery that you don't fucking understand that. So I think that's the problem. I could see someone like Holloway really making it a fight, because Holloway's game, he's got a good chin, he can box, he can throw volume, and I can see that. But I can see also a guy like Crawford playing the game, taking it on the gloves, you know what I mean, and not getting hurt and hitting to the body, scoring points. The judges in boxing are looking for different things, and being able to, out of 12 rounds, right, win 7. I can see Crawford doing that. And it not necessarily being close, and people go, well, it was 7-5. He fucking should have thing. And if it was in MMA, well, fuck yeah. Well, Max Holloway probably beat him in a marathon run too. It's not the point. That's what you're fighting. And you're fighting and competing under a particular rule set. And if you don't understand the scoring system and you don't understand the rules, you're already behind the 8 ball. And people don't fucking get that. What's even scarier is that people that don't get that bet. They bet on fights, but they don't understand how the scoring system works. And so that's scary to me, when people do that. SG writes, I agree. The bias towards underdogs is real also. The bias for underdogs is real. 1, because people like the fairy tale. 2, because that creates the most polarizing narrative for podcasters and for the media in general. And 3, that's the most attractive bets. So that's the one that people bet on. And that's the one that people want to say, I knew and I bet fucking $500. The reality though, and 10-round fight is the same. Like, I don't know, like I said, look, off memory, last 2 rounds, Tyson. First 2 rounds, Tyson. 10-8 round for Ngannou, But this is already 4 out of 10 rounds. That's already 4 for Tyson. Do you get what I mean? Um, and then if Tyson won 2 more rounds in there, then he wins a fight. If he won 1 more round and Ngannou wins it, I think off the top of my head like this, there's swing rounds in there. But for you to be having that conversation, it's pretty fucking phenomenal. It's pretty phenomenal. From Francis Ngannou's perspective, and it's not, to me, it's not really like, I don't even know what the conversation, why people say it's like, oh, a massive win for MMA. It's got like, and it's Ngannou that did that, not MMA. And not every MMA fighter has that ability. Here's another one for you. Rockhold, a veteran MMA fighter, right? Veteran MMA fighter, has a submission grappling match with Nicky Rodriguez, and it goes to a draw. Is that a win for all of MMA? That to me is pretty fantastic. That doesn't make submission grappling a shit sport. You know what I mean? That doesn't make submission grappling terrible, and it doesn't make Nicky Rodriguez terrible either. But this is one of the very best grapplers. This was in Nicky Rodriguez at Polaris 12 on November 30th, 2019. Nicky Rodriguez is silver medalist at Abu Dhabi, blah, 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 blah. And for those that don't know, does that make Nicky Rodriguez or the sport of grappling bad? Of course it doesn't. Yeah, of course it doesn't. It's just what it is. SG says people love the poetic narrative. Of course you do. Of course you do. And people love the polarizing narrative too. That's what's exciting. Guys, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends and hit the notification bell. Joe Schmo says, afternoon champions. Good afternoon, sir. SG says also, who did you have winning the fight, Fab? I had Fury winning 7 out of 10 rounds. Yeah, like I said, I thought, because I wasn't scoring it. I'm not a boxing judge, man. I'm not even an MMA judge. I can just tell you who I thought was winning. Just watching the fight, like I said, I thought that it was very clear that Tyson won the first and the second. To me, it was very clear. It was very clear that Tyson won the 9th and the 10th. It's 4 rounds out of 10, right? He only had, then there were swing rounds in there, and obviously Ngannou had the one where he dropped him, and that was 10-8. So it could have been a draw. Depends how you give the swing rounds. If you give them to Ngannou, then Ngannou gets them. Then Ngannou would get the fight. But you'd have to give every swing round to Ngannou. Do you know what I mean? Because Ngannou was down 4 rounds. You have to, even if you're the biggest supporter of Ngannou, you cannot tell me that he won rounds 9 and 10. I don't think he did. Maybe he did. I don't fucking know. I didn't think so. And I didn't think that Ngannou won the first and the second. I didn't think that. And so then that just leaves the rounds in the middle, rounds 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Out of those 5 rounds, if Tyson won 2 or 3, then he's going to win the fight. And Ngannou definitely won the 10-8 round. And I would say he won a couple in there as well, or at least one in there, something like this. So it was very hard for me. Like I said, I'm not a boxing judge, so I'm not going to die on that hill. I'm not going to be like, he fucking won, and then blah, blah, blah. But to me, there were clear rounds that were won and clear rounds that were lost for each fighter. And in a 10-round fight, to overcome a 4-round deficit, I mean, that's hard. It would have had to have won, and he did have a 10-8 round, so that can sway things, But I wasn't that surprised that Tyson won the fight. Like, it's not a robbery. SG says, new idea for judging. Judges are allocated for each round. They get footage of the round when it's over and have until the end of the fight to break down the round and score it. I mean, you can do any and all things in between. There's always going to be the human subjectivity of the scoring. There's no way around that. And that's going to come down to like your objective truth, your subjective truth, what you've lived, how you've lived it, what your combat background is. Have you ever been sparring and get hit by a bad body shot? Then you're going to know the body shots fucking score. You know what I mean? If you've never, ever been hit to the body, then you're probably not going to score them as much. And when you're in there and you're live and you're close to the guys, you got to understand, like, people love to shit on the judges, but you're not judging the fight, dude. And you can have a bunch of guys that all watch the fights, and they'll all have different ideas and whatnot. But the reality is, like, you're going to still be subjective. No matter what way you look at it, you're still going to be subjective. If you're there and you see someone get hit live, you're right next to it. It may not look like it on camera. Even if you go back and you rewind and you look at it and you do all the weasel style breakdowns, that's still not the same, dude. I've been in the corner, right, in fights, and I've seen guys get hit, and I hear the shot, and it sounds like the guy got hit by a baseball bat. And I hear the guy that got hit. I'm not going to say who the people were or whatever, but I hear the guy that got hit go, or I hear my own guy, right? And I hear them, and I go, ugh, like, ugh. Like I get hit like to the body or something, and they're like, ugh, and I see it. There was a fight. I was in a corner for a fight. I'm not going to say what it was. It was the start of the fight, right? It was the absolute start of the fight. And the other guy kicked my guy in the stomach, like front shit kick too, but just like a front kick straight to the body. Hit him with a heel with this front kick, but it got him in the body, like got him in the guts. And cause I know my fighter, right? I saw his face, and I heard it. I heard that, and I shit a brick, man. I thought, man, this fight's done. My guy got hit so good to the body that it was done. And I saw my guy stop. I saw his body language. I saw his body change. When you watch the fight on TV, you can't see it. You don't know it. You cannot. You don't know. You don't know what was going on. The guy that kicked my guy, he didn't know that he'd hurt him this bad. If he had jumped on him in those first 30 seconds, he would have won that fight, and history would be completely different. He kicked him so good. He kicked him so flush that should have been a wrap if he had jumped on him. But he didn't know that he hurt him. I knew that he hurt him. There might have been a judge sitting there watching that and saw that exchange, and he would know that he hurt him. So it's hard, man. There's a massive subjectivity, to what's happening. And so I don't know. I don't know how you're going to fix the judging necessarily. I think more importantly to me, see, in this Francis and Tyson fight, it doesn't really matter. They both got paid. I think the problem is when your paycheck relies on you winning or losing. But that's not a judging problem. That's a contractual payment dispute. If you got paid a flat fee for, like winning or losing, that's a different thing. Like, or you're paid $300,000 a year to fight, and you got to fight 3 times in that year, for example, or $500,000 a year to fight, whatever it is, an arbitrary figure, like a league like that. You just got paid a salary and you fought. That's different. I'm not saying that's what they should do. I don't care. That's not my job. I'm not a promoter. UFC knows what they're doing. Bellator knows what they're doing. They don't need me. I'm just saying to you, that's different. But when people go, it hangs on the balance of the fight. No. It doesn't hang on. That shouldn't hang on the judges. That's a promotional issue. Don't mix arguments. The promotion is in charge of paying the fighters, not the judges. The judges are there to judge the fight. It's actually ridiculous that you say that, because it should be inconsequential to what happens there. The judges judge the fight. They say, this is what I saw. This is what I think happened, and this is what I believe. This is what I believe. This is who I believe won. X. And they don't sign the checks, man. So, anyways, so some people saying so SG says those judges can forward and rewind foot. SG says, right, I think it helps to eliminate the pressure of judging on the spot. SG says, man, I've heard from spectators that the sounds from MMA fights in person are gut-wrenching. Yeah, dude. Kickboxing is probably worse. Like K1 kickboxing, that kind of style, that's worse, because you hear the shots. There's other things that if you're judging the fight as well, then you watch it on TV. It's so different, because you kick me, right? And I check your kick. And even though I checked it, it hurt me, or vice versa. And that is something that, and I understand, oh, fuck, you hurt him, going back to the damage thing. But that's not a significant. If you kick me and I check it, that's not a significant strike. That isn't thing. But I've changed the momentum of the fight and I've damaged you. And a lot of people don't realize this. A lot of people don't realize what's happening in the fight, what's happening between these two guys. So it's very hard, man. It's a very, very hard job. I wouldn't fucking do it. Pass on that shit. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be a judge. I used to referee high school basketball when I was in high school, and I would never do it again. It was horrible. Horrible. It's not how people think, man. Because when you're refereeing, if anyone's had a chance to do this, you're refereeing a game. And even though you know the rules well, say of basketball, you know the rules well, but it happens so quick that you go travel. But if you're not like versed in it, like in refereeing, by the time you go, is that a travel? It's gone. It's something else has happened. So you've got to be quick enough to go travel and call it there and then. So quick. And you can't second guess yourself. If you go, was that a travel? They've already moved on. It's hard, man. It's not an easy job. Refereeing and judging, I'll leave the two. Nathan Gorman says, I remember Leon's elbow on RDA was nasty. Yeah, man. Yeah, prepare yourself for that against Colby. I think that's what's going to happen. He's going to elbow him and he's going to try and cut him open to stop that forward pressure from Colby. I don't think he's going to want to let Colby be able to get into that rhythm. And that really disrupts your rhythm when you get cut like that. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for today. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and let me know who you think won and why. So, guys, thank you very much. I'll catch you guys soon. Before I go, Nathan Gorman wrote, I'll watch the Islam versus Charles fight on YouTube again without the audio and in slow motion. The fight was closer than I thought it was. Yeah. Sorry, let me say that Nathan Gorman before I go. I was about to go, and I will have to go soon because I have to go to training. But watch the fights, right? Watch them without audio. Watch them without the benefit of hindsight. And you understand that some of these fights, anything can happen. Like in that Charles fight, because I don't know who I was going for. I like Charles, I really like Charles Oliveira, but I'm a huge fan of Islam. Huge fan of Islam. And so it was hard, man. I didn't want either one of these guys to lose. And I'm not going to lie to you. My heart was here, watching that fight because there were so many times that people, like, it could have gone either way. You know what I mean? There were so many times. Like, Charles is throwing heavy shots, dude. Any one of Charles' shots gets through and Islam is going to hit the deck if it lands flush. And Charles' grappling, he proved it was good enough. He can get back up off the bottom. He can threaten with submissions from the bottom. He can threaten with strikes from the bottom. He showed that he could do that against Islam. But then on the feet, Islam caught him flush. But that could have gone the other way, man. That could have gone the other way. Man, look at the thing that happened with Gaethje and Charles. Look at the thing that happened with Chandler and Charles. He got dropped, but when he touched them and he touched them flush, they were in trouble, man. They were in real trouble. And it's the same thing with Islam. Like, he could get hit like that. This is not, this is fighting. It's not. You can analyze it. I like to analyze. I like to break the statistics up. Even if I've got guys fighting, I do as much research as I can on people, come up with as much game plans. But at the end of the day, man, it's a fight. You know what I mean? It's a fight at the end of the day. And it's not easy. And you're in there getting hit, getting hurt. And someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell, share it with your friends, tell everyone about it. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.